I want to take you a step back with from Jasper's presentation and actually look at the things that happen before the building comes up. My approach to sustainability is very much about getting it actually done in reality on the ground. So when I talk about sustainable urban living, I really talk about working, sleeping, playing, running, laughing in Christchurch, and also about doing it again. And that this is a new process for us here. The old models of thinking in terms of urban design, architecture, engineering, don't really work that well post-earthquake. And the planning doesn't work that well either post-earthquake. So we've got a whole raft of things that we need to address. So buttons, I assume, are these ones? The blueprint. This sets out the planning for the vision, the ideas. It's a lot of what my work involves is looking back at that plan and interpreting how that will work in Christchurch. But, and we probably all have looked at it and wondered over it and understood parts, but it is really just a large picture frame to fill, although it looks like a pretty picture. The reality is really this. And this is one of the images that really caught me out when I worked on the river together with Colin and some other colleagues. When that came in and was available, I thought, wow, what a river. This is showing the resilience of nature. And that is one thing that we all probably have learned, that it's stronger than us. And the river has fared a lot better than a lot of the buildings. And I think that's something that's a lecture we need to learn, to go back and actually understand the natural processes of the land and the water and taking the resilience from that. The other one is the community coming back, the vibrancy of people. And I've taken this one because it is one that we can all associate with. But it also shows a way of placemaking and of urban design that can happen probably with less red tape and with a lot of people helping. It also has a very human scale, the restart. It's very vibrant, it has flexibility, it can move around. It might not have the geotechnical resilience, it might not have the structural resilience, and it might be a bit cold in winter, but it's got some attributes that we should carry into the way we design the future of our city. This is what restart could look like in a residential environment. This is not from New Zealand. This is a project in Freiburg in Germany. It is a very low budget project. It's very vibrant, very colorful. It has been taken as an example for a lot of studies, and it followed a particular process. So I'm not saying that this is the right process to go by, but this is something that is very community based. And what I want to do now is actually take you through the real process that when you start looking at developing something in a city and what is really new in Christchurch and what are the things that we can carry over from the past that actually still work. Let's go into anyone who wants to develop anything normally starts with a piece of land. You need to understand your site, and often the site is not only looked at from boundary to boundary. Natural processes show us that if the neighbouring property liquefies, I will be affected too, so it might be worthwhile looking a bit further. And in terms of an urban context, you also need to know where you sit within the city. There are different areas within a city that can do different things because of its distances to the centre, distances to park areas. So the idea of one house on one plot going right from left to right and top to bottom through Christchurch is actually an inappropriate model. So understanding the context, which is a really big topic, is the first point to start with. And when we do that as urban designers, architects, landscape architects, you name it, we very often go back to the bare soil that we're on, and geotechnical sort of assessments have become often the starting point now. The other one is working with water. We can do that in many ways, but New Zealand is surrounded by water. We've got water under us, we've noticed. We have water coming from the top down. It flows, it's got to go somewhere. Water doesn't know any boundaries. Water is also a life-giving source. So water is something that we all need, and sometimes we have too much and sometimes we have too little. There's always a reason to complain about it. In reality, we need to learn to harness water, and we need to learn to let it go where it needs to go in a clean way. So we need to be able to collect rainwater, we need to hold the rainwater, we need to make good use of that rainwater, but we also need to learn that the water needs to go back into the ground, that it has a natural flow pattern. And it might be something that we normally look at in a big picture, but even on a small site, even on my little property, which is lower than the road, I had to learn that water flows down from the street into my property, and that I have to think about that seriously. So it is not just something that, oh, we'll leave it to the professionals. It's something that every person needs to think about and can do something. The next one is landscape. When we think about landscape, we often think about make it look pretty. Or we think about it as a big landscape, a scenic view. But landscape has a purpose. And we need to learn to actually landscape with purpose. It's a matter of shelter. It might be cleansing the water. It might be providing food. And that can be done in large-scale areas. It can be done in very small little pockets. We need to integrate that in every development that we do. This is my pet project, how people move. The first thing we need to understand is that people move with their feet. Wherever you want to go, you have to go. No one carries you there, not a car. A car doesn't get you to the toilet. You really need to learn to use your feet, and we've lost that ability, and we've lost the joy in it. As soon as it's a bit colder and it looks like it might rain, I definitely will take the car. It becomes an excuse. So I'm not saying I'm anti-car, I'm just saying I'm pro-feet. I drive a car myself. And then the next step is to understand with any development that you do is how do we actually move to it, do we move through it, how do we want to move, the joy of moving. Sometimes I look at my children, I've got 2 boys, and just the excitement that they get out of jumping around, and sometimes I wish I had that still, but we can have that, we can choose to have that. So it's a relearning of doing that again. The other one is spaces for people. When we do our exercises in development, we roughly calculate, you might correct me, Jess, but 25 to 30 square meters per car park. Now that's the whole bedroom. That gives you the relationship between what we associate for people space versus car space. So we need to start designing the spaces for the people first, and they need to be at ground level because that's where everyone wants to move. But when we're thinking about a city that doesn't have that much ground, and we don't want to move people that far away from the city centre, we also need to think about elevating spaces that are spaces for people. Christchurch is very much a city of, it works well at ground level, but a lot of developments work very, very badly once you look past the verandas, and they're often very empty. So we need to think about the verticality of the city and how to actually make these spaces livable. And we need to think about the life cycle of things. This is a project that is made of recycled material. It happens to be brick, and I might say it's probably not the best example for Christchurch right now. However, every piece of brick in this building has been used before, and each brick is older than I am. It's older than my mother is and my grandmother was. So these materials live a lot longer than we do. And if we think about the care we take about our own materiality and what we surround ourselves with, it has far less longevity than the materials we're actually building with. So the life cycle of a material is not just how it's being created and how it's being used, but how it's being reused and reused. There is a lot of recyclable material in Christchurch, and I think we need to get past the fact that it is debris and get to the point where we understand that it's actually usable material. We might use it differently though. So putting all these things together is the hard job, and that is the job where urban designers and architects and landscape architects and lots of other professionals actually work together. So if you think of all these puzzle pieces coming together on a small site, we also think about that, how that comes together on a big site, and that's where the conflict really starts. And I'll take you through some simple examples where this morning we had a question thrown at us as to, well, what if someone wants to visit me and where do they park their car? So, okay, well, how many people do you think will visit you? Well, about 5. So have I now got to provide 5 visitor car parks, 2 car parks for the people that live there, for every unit in the centre of Christchurch? I mean, we need to really seriously challenge that thinking and think about you want the people to arrive, you don't want the cars to arrive. And that fighting for space is the one thing in my profession that has been the core all the time, because the land is worth money, and it is often worth as much as you can stack on top of it. So if it's 7 stories high and you have that amount of area, that means the value of the land is that much, and that thinking is wrong, because it doesn't take into consideration how the water works on that site and how much space it needs. It doesn't take into consideration how much the landscaping will need. A tree needs space to grow, and it doesn't take into consideration how we move. So the value of land is not what you can build upon it as of right based on the planning rules. And that is often the starting point for a lot of development thinking. So I want to challenge that here rigorously. So once we put it all together, it shouldn't be Lego blocks and it shouldn't be just a box, but we need to seriously think about how these components work together and where we set our priorities. And my goal is always to say that it has to be sustainable, but sustainability is the end goal, and you can have very, very high aims to reach out for. The most important thing is the first step you make. As long as that is in the right direction, you will eventually get there. But if you don't make the first step in the right direction, you will not get there. You will walk in the wrong direction. So sustainability is about having the right process with the right direction. And just walk it slowly at your pace and what you can sustain and what you yourself can afford. And that will then hopefully provide some living environment, which I have to be honest, I pinched off the web. So this could be credited to Seismics as part of the Breathe competition. I have been part of that competition, so I don't feel too bad about pinching the image. But this is something that I can see happening in Christchurch in terms of living together and sharing landscape and sharing pathways and sharing our living environments. People are social animals. Look at us. We're all sitting around tables together. People actually want each other's company. We're putting fences up as land demarcation and ownership proclamation, but then we invite people to come to our house. So deep down, we're actually a group of animals that share. We're a community. And that's what we need to base our city living around. This is my favorite slide that I could find in my entire system. This is about breaking the rules for the future to survive. Our children rely on us getting this right. Christchurch needs to rethink about the process of development, the process of designing, and the process of working together. And it's very much how money works with vision, because often they go into opposite directions. So my hope is that the red tape can be broken in a lot of areas, that the planning rules can start supporting the processes of sustainable and good urban design. And I'm even 20 seconds short. Thank you.